A beautiful morning to you here. This wonderful Sunday morning, and it's actually a very beautiful way to start the week because it's a new week that we're stepping into starting from today. I hope you had an amazing weekend, and from us here is an amazing from the Federal Capital Territory here, Abuja. I am Anita Patrick, and of course, you know what it looks like on the breakfast program on the weekend is always a time to have very wonderful discussions and share our thoughts, talk about things happening around us and across the globe. And a beautiful day it will be today on this particular show. I am Anita Patrick, and I won't be doing this alone as always. I have my co-anchor with me in the studio in person of Mukhtar Kasim. Hello, Mukhtar.
Hi, Anita. Good morning.
Morning.
It's a beautiful day, like you've said. It's always is actually when we're on the program, and today is not going to be any different.
Of course.
It's been an amazing past week. It's been one that's bubbling with a lot of activities from politics to economy, security. All of those things have dominated the headlines during the week under review, and of course, the weekend comes with its own different ball game.
Yes.
And I know it's going to be a great one for all our viewers and everyone, basically.
Yes, of course, it's going to be a great one. And then don't forget, like we always do on the program, you know, we have lots of things lined up for you from the newspaper review segment. We'll also bring you taste and texture. There's something really nice we want you to try tasting and give you the idea to go make in your comfort space and enjoy the meal, because Mukhtar always likes when it comes to taste and texture.
Of course, you know, I am a foodie when it comes to taste and texture. One of my most favorite parts of the program, where we bring to you breakfast, and of course I know the audience share the same sentiment I have of liking an amazing breakfast. And of course, after breakfast, we'll bring to them topical discussions in the 9 o'clock hour.
Yeah.
And of course, after that, another conversation back to back.
Yes, it's going to be back to back, very interesting conversation that you cannot afford to miss, because, of course, we want to look at what the space is in terms of economy, all the types of developmental work. What have we done to enable the community around us? Are we heads on? Are we keeping them? Are we lifting ourselves as a human being?
Of course, you know, community is one. We all are part of the community, and the way we treat our community is the way we see our nation. Our nation is a reflection of our community. So if we have issues at the top, if you want to trace the solution, you have to go back to the drawing board, which is the communities. And if you're able to get it right at the community level, I assure you that the national level also be straight eventually.
Of course, that gives us an edge, and also this is kind of intertwined in a way. Developmental work with our second conversation has to do with the kidnapping issue, insecurity issues, because if we have the community properly equipped and guided and having a safe space, of course, it gives us an edge.
You know, people have even said that if you trace criminality and all of that, people will tell you that it is due to the fact that we've eroded the trust that comes with community, the love and the unity that comes with community. Those are the reasons why some analysts have traced Nigeria's insecurity problem. So we have to get it right at the community level to get it right at the national level, of course.
But the good thing is, what we're seeing from the government perspective is the fact that we're seeing that rescue operations also stirring up that trust thing, to ensure that people still trust the government, still trust the system. Because one thing is, when there's failure to trust the system, it becomes a very big problem. And of course, like you said, we've seen a lot of distrust over time, and that is the fact that the people have felt that the government has not really had their interest at heart in terms of security, in terms of welfare. But with the recent wave of rescue that we've seen of abductees across the country, I think that is something that if the government sustains that tempo, it will bring back the trust. The people will begin to see the government as having their interest. And that conversation, of course, is going to be very important. Very important. And we'll have quite amazing experts who will join us and will dissect all of this. But before we give you all of this breakdown, because we just wanted to have an idea of what you should expect on the program, because it's going to be really rich. We don't want to turn up the TV at all. Stay glued, because there's a whole lot lined up for you. Quickly, we'll get to our newspaper review segment. So we'll bring you stories making the front page covers of the dailies. Please stay with us.
Back on Global Morning, you're welcome to the newspaper review, where we bring to you the big stories that are making the rounds on our national dailies. And we've got a number of papers for review this morning. We've got the Sunday Punch, the Weekend Guardian, the Nations, the Sunday Sun. We've got the Telegraph, Tribune, and the Vanguard. But we begin with the Sunday Punch newspaper, and it leads with this big story. It says, exclusive, Osun inside Tinubu's emergency meeting with 76 APC leader, and it's got two riders. First one says, President moves to align aggrieved groups after Ribadu's warning. And the second rider says, Basiru, 5 reps, ex-speakers, former deputy governors in attendance. All of the story, you find details on page 3 of the Sunday Sun newspaper.
And of course, let's go above the nameplates there, where on the very right-hand corner there, we have where it says BCDA, leadership tussle cripples agency as ministry withholds 10 billion naira. That story is also on page 3 of the Sunday Punch.
And of course, by the left-hand corner, you see a story that says how Obasanjo Atiku war tore opposition coalition apart. And details you find on pages 4 and page 29 of the Sunday's Punch newspaper.
And below that, that's the nameplate there. By the left-hand corner, you see the priest there. It says Christian leaders divided over presidency on Kong and role. That story is on page 5.
And below that story, it says Osun resident hide party colors amidst cult-fueled killings. And details on page 4 of Sunday Punch.
And then let's go at the bottom plates there of the paper. There's a bit of entertainment. So we have a musician there. There was really a massive one over the weekend there, where it says Subaba Natasha's nightclub drama deepens marital crisis. And that story is on page 24.
And away from that story, just in the middle, it says abandoned abroad. Nigerians in UK stranded by passport renewal nightmare.
Wow, that can be very troubling.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Okay, so beside that story, just at the right-hand corner there, it says, I became executive beggar despite serving Lagos for 30 years. Ex-administrator, and that story is on page 27.
That's a sad one. Not to dwell on that particular sad story, away from it, a bit of business. It says, airlines borrow 60 billion naira for fuel as operation costs rise.
Well, we've seen this over time. Fuel increments and cost there affecting the aviation sector, and this is one way of expressing their feeling on how this is affecting.
We all know the problem with this is the fact that the burden eventually falls on the cost on the passengers. They get to see how the
very pricey
the air tickets have become. We just hope that is resolved in time, not to put more hardship on the people than it already is.
Hopefully we get past that. Let's turn our focus, because that's the size of it, with the Sunday Punch. Let's get to the Guardian. The Guardian Weekend has its own lead story, and it comes boldly still with a build-up to Osun elections, as Osun polls concern lingers over alleged intimidation, and that story is on page 8. Of course, we know that it's the election period. It happens every
election cycle in Nigeria. You see one or two drama. I saw a story earlier saying that one of the commissioners have been arrested over a shooting incident in the same Osun state. Elections do not have to
don't forget, we just had
down
the issue around the accounts of the...
Of course, the freezing of the Osun state accounts and freezing the same week.
So we just hope we get a very credible, free and fair process for the people.
Hopefully that happens. And away from that story, let's go above the nameplate. The story here says, Art, page 15, an intimate portrait of Babajide Sanwo-Olu as governor.
All right, so let's go to the middle there, and there's a story that says Abuja at 50 redemption song for Wike. Of course, we know there has redemption because of the infrastructural changes. We'll see the completion of projects, and also ensuring that Abuja stands in at par with other
capitals across the continent and even the world, of course. And away from that story, by the right-hand corner, it says a special feature on pages 4 and 5. Skills training open new path for vulnerable children.
Well, beautiful one there. Let's go below the nameplate at the right-hand corner. We'll talk about environmental degradation. Well, RMAFC orders Sterling Oil to compensate host communities. Stories on page 3. Of course, that has to do with degradation and the problem around.
Especially in the Niger Delta region, we see oil spillage and all of those things. And it's something that has continued to make the front page, and we hope the communities are compensated and they get the best. And away from that story, but still in the business sector, it says Wunti heads World Energy Council Nigeria. Details you find on page 2 of the Guardian Weekend newspaper. And
away from that, we have where it says Dangote backs push for Nigeria's medical sovereignty, regenerative medicine. That story is on page 3 as well.
Of course, still giving you more stories making the rounds. On the Guardian, it says the River Park Estate dispute now at international arbitration stage. And that is the FCT minister, Nyesom Wike, speaking, with details on page 3 of the newspaper.
And then we have a bit of insecurity there where it says gunmen adopt farmers in Ondo, demand 100 million ransom. Please, where will a farmer get 100 million ransom? That story is on page 44.
Honestly, it is worrisome because these are people who are subsistent and they barely even get enough for their family. And I just hope they are brought back to their families and reunited. But away from that story, it says, last story, says ongoing ECOWAS chief applauds Tinubu, Nigeria, for easing tension in West Africa.
Okay, and that makes it with the Guardian Weekend. Let's turn our focus and see what the Nation newspaper looks like. The Nation newspaper starts with its own lead story there, and it comes up with the build-up to 2027 election. It says Obi Serakis aides clash over threats to NDC's fortunes. And we have rider that says logo controversy sparks disquiet in party. Ex-Bayelsa governor meets Obi Kwankwaso. All of that is contained on the front page cover there and continues on page 4.
And of course, let's take you above the nameplate by the left-hand corner and tell you a story that says police arrest Osun commissioner over alleged gun attack at APC rally. And he has got a rider that says 3 party supporters hospitalized. And all of these details you find on page 8 of the Nation's newspaper.
And then just beside that story, by the right-hand corner, it says why Iran says killer remains unknown. Ex-ADC Sani Bello is speaking there. And of course, there's a rider there. It talks about experts, how he became former head of state there in the camp there. So all of the story you can pick up on page 3 as well of the Nation newspaper.
Let's take you just below the big story and to Borno State. It says Zulum, Sahel countries reps meet to tackle Boko Haram. And details you find on page 36 of the Nation's newspaper.
Okay, so there's a picture story here that talks about killers. It says killers go free. How the earth, of evidence stalls. Okay, that of evidence stalls Nigeria's cold case trials. Well, there's a whole lot on this story. It tells a lot because there are pictures here from back in the day.
Yes, different people. I can see Bola Igede, yes. There's the lady from Sokoto State.
So this is deep. So it's something you need to pick up and understand.
Honestly, because one thing is you see advanced countries, not Nigeria is not advanced in its own right, but we see
developing nations.
Of course. Well, you see countries, even after many, many years, killers are haunted, even when some of them are aged and they still face justice. But that has not really happened much in this country. And I hope this particular story would ignite curiosity and
we find out about what the killers are and then definitely give the family the closure.
Closure is very important because sometimes losing a loved one is there, but not knowing that the person who has done this is still at large. And anybody else could be the next victim. It's something that's really traumatizing. But when you see the person brought to book and is in jail, at least you get to console yourself that okay, this person cannot do the same thing he has done to my my loved one. You can't do it to someone else because it's in jail.
He's actually out of the picture.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get to the story there. Just underneath the left-hand side there, it says Niger Delta leaders defend Tinubu's coastal road project. And that story is on page 6, right?
And of course, the last story for The Nations says police arrest 5 Pakistanis with 35 phones in Benue.
Okay, and that makes up the stories here on the front page cover of Sunday paper for the
Nations newspaper.
So let's turn our focus and see what it looks like with the Sunday Sun newspaper. And it has its own lead story, still talking about the Osun Guba elections. It says APC Accord under pressure. And then, of course, we have riders that says days to Guba poll, allegations of votes buying, PVC inducements intensify. We also have another one that says commissioners arrest sparks outreach. We have TICC alleges plot to manipulate Saturday poll. This is just in 1 week time. So
it's just a week and we're seeing a lot of drama. Then what will happen when it is the D-Day? We just hope it's peaceful.
I just want a peaceful and transparent process as a Nigerian first, because that's what matters. It gives an edge. It gives peace to the minds of citizens.
And it gives trust also to the system.
Hope
exactly.
That democracy can still thrive.
It's going to thrive in Nigeria, because we always talk about lack of trust in the system, but with things like this, how would the people trust the system when we always see all of these irregularities before, during, and even after elections? It's not really one that speaks well for our democracy. But like you said, hope is not should be lost, and we'll get there.
We'll get there someday. Well, that story is contained on page 25. Pick up a copy and find out what the same.
And away from that story, let's go just below. It says, my biggest challenge as Benue governor, and that is Alia speaking on page 5, and it has about 2 or 3 riders. First one says, security improving, we're closing IDP camps. Economy, only naysayers won't see improvement under Tinubu. And all of the stories you find on page 8 of the Sunday Sun newspaper.
And of course, a lot of stories still making the rounds there. Let's tell you what it looks like above the nameplate there. Talks about the right-hand corner there, where it says customs uncovers arms smuggling plot. And of course, we have a rider that says intercepts 373.8 million naira drug shipment at Tinkan Port. Wow.
Very important. The customs have been doing a great job, and this is one.
For them to intercept. That means they're really on their game to ensuring that drug problem is reduced to the barest minimum.
And of course, arms also.
Arms as well.
Away from that story, it says vandalized Lagos bridges, structural integrity not compromised. And that is Sanwo-Olu speaking, Governor of Lagos State. Details you find on page 26.
Okay, so beside that story there, we have where it says 2027, battle for Northwest heats up. And we have the writer that says how APC, PDP, ADC, NDC plot to garner votes of Nigeria's largest region. All of that is on page 18 and 19. And
away from that story, just by the left-hand corner, foremost left, it says school abductions, kidnapping. Kalu Idika, Kalu blast federal government with riders. First one says, it's shameful that the nation that led ECOMOG can't defend school against headers and all of the other insecurity problems.
Okay, so that's the size of that paper. Let's turn our focus quickly to see what it looks like with the New Telegraph newspaper. That's a Sunday Telegraph, and it has its own lead story that comes in. It says 2 weeks to campaign kickoff. Lobbying intensifies for Tinubu's PCC coordinator. And then we have the writer that says Akpabio Saraki back wiki for DG Yari Almakura Uzodima pull strings. And that story is on page 2.
And let's take you just by the right-hand corner of that particular story. It says ANIEC, why suit by 56 councillors won't stop local government polls this month. And details you find on pages 3 and 4 of the Sunday Telegraph newspaper.
Okay, so very interesting update here for the fake agency below what Mutar took there on the right-hand corner about the PFIPC says ADC demands publication of ICPC reports. Story on page 5.
Of course. And away from that story, just below, it says, stop using our name for your internal drama. IPOB tells DSS. Details on page 2.
Let's also tell you the story before we get to the bottom plate, just above the lead story there, and also below the name plate. It says 6 days to Osun 2026 at Deleke Oyebamiji battle for supremacy. And of course, we have riders that says federal agents must be neutral. Accord chieftain speaking. You also have where it says Oyebamiji will waiting for new dawn. And then the other one says army warns troops against bias, harassment, and also have police arrests commissioner. And that makes up all the build up to Osun election. Because like I said, it's a 6 days
to go in precisely.
That's on page 3 and 26 of the paper.
Well, let's go above the nameplate by the right hand corner. It says counter-insurgency troops rescue 1,156 kidnapped victims, kill 548 terrorists in 3 months. And that's according to an investigation. You find details on page 4 of the Sunday Telegraph newspaper.
And just beside that, we have where African leaders are speaking to the issues, there. So African leaders should address governance issues fueling migration. We have Mukwa, South Africa's DG Communication. That's on page 14 and 19, of course. And let's wrap it up.
Wrapping up with the stories that are below, just at the bottom plate. One here says, devastated by misfortune, poverty, patients cry at Igbobi, and that's by 10 and 23 is when you find details of this particular story. And the last story,
yes,
says,
on the left hand, on the right hand corner.
On the left hand corner, actually.
Okay, we see where it says insecurity. Talking about police arrest 5 Pakistanis in Benue. Okay, I think this item we're looking at into who and who. How
did they get Benue, and what are they doing in Benue State in particular?
So, because Benue State has been a state
hotbed
where
of
flashlights, flashpoints, and issues around it. So it's good that we know who and who is on ground. Well, the says recover 35 mobile separate operations. Story on page 5. So find out what the stories are saying. And of course, that brings us to the wrap on what our stories are saying on the front page covers of the dailies. Like we always say, when we bring you the stories, it's just to give you a heads up for you to be informed and have an idea of what's happening around you, and you can also talk to people
confidently
from an
informed perspective
of what is happening around you. And of course, it's time for us to turn our focus and look at what our first discussion segments will be. But before that, let's bring you breakfast. And of course, that's Mutara's favorite.
Taste and texture.
Taste and texture. Please stay with us as we bring that your way.
In an age of breaking news, you need a trusted source that prioritizes accurate, factual, and unbiased reporting. This is AM News, and I am Ubong Osoro.
On Global Television, our news is rooted in verified and authoritative storytelling that keeps you educated, informed, and enlightened on all the issues that matter to you. I am Sadia Yakubu. This is Midday News.
You can trust our multi-platform news broadcast real-time and fast-check stories for all the big local and foreign headlines round the clock. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. This is News Express.
Our array of anchors delivers the news to our teeming viewers, breaking it down with context and perspective. This is News Cycle on Global Television. I am Anieti Patrick.
And the flagship news is your hub for the day's most engaging stories. This is News Prime, and I am Jumai Manson.
Did you miss any of our news rounds? No worries. Catch up at 10 p.m. and midnight, 7 days of the week. I am Mukhtar Kasim.
Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. We're active across all social media platforms at Global TV NG. At Aerogym Shoe Factory, excellence starts from the ground up.
Imagine having the power of television, movies, news, and entertainment right in your pocket. Welcome to Free TV App, Nigeria's all-in-one digital TV experience. With Free TV App, you get access to over 100 live TV channels, breaking news, sports, movies, kids shows, and more. All from a single mobile app. No decoder stress, no complicated setup, just download, open, and start watching. Free TV is television reimagined for the digital age. To get started, simply search Free TV on the Google Play Store or Free TV NG on the Apple App Store, or scan the QR code on your screen. Once installed, register in seconds using your phone number, email, WhatsApp, Google ID, or Apple ID. Secure OTP verification ensures safe and seamless access. Inside the app, explore content directly from the home screen or navigate easily using the various tabs. The Live TV section gives you access to over 100 licensed channels, complete with an electronic program guide, EPG, pause, rewind, and catch-up features. The Video On Demand library offers up to 500 hours of curated content, including Nollywood movies, drama series, documentaries, kids and educational programs. You can resume playback, save favorites, and download content to watch offline. The News tab delivers real-time updates across breaking news, sports, entertainment, technology, and pop culture, all in one place. Free TV is more than an app. It's a digital revolution in broadcasting. Download the Free TV app today.
Tired of the snow? Tired of the bad TV signals? Nigeria has gone digital. Introducing Free TV, the national platform for every Nigerian. Get 100 plus channels immediately. Sports, news, and entertainment in your native language. All with clear picture quality. Whether you're in the city or the village, our satellite signal reaches every corner of 36 states from day one. No monthly subscription, just a compatible decoder and you are set. It's a national asset built for you. Take the show on the road. Download the Free TV app and stream your favorite channels anywhere. Starting this May, scan to download the app or call 0700 388 7277. Free TV, digital TV for free. Brought to you by NBC.
The focus now to discussion segment where we told you we had a lot lined up for you, and of course it's time to have it. Every day Nigerians are presented with statistics. We hear about inflation, unemployment, poverty, economic growth, school enrollment, healthcare, government spending, and other indicators used to measure the state of the country. But behind every statistics is a human being. Behind a poverty figure is a family trying to survive. Behind an unemployment figure is someone searching for an opportunity. And also behind a development program is a community hoping that something will actually change. Well, this morning we're taking a step beyond the numbers to see how this pans out, Mukhtar.
Of course, we're taking the step, like you rightly said, beyond numbers, and we're asking what years of research, development, and working directly with Nigerians, what it has taught us about the country beyond all of those numbers and statistics that we tend to hear. Because the reason why we are doing that is that every program can look successful on paper, but does it really bring meaningful change to those communities? Do we see their lives getting better? Aside all of the statistics, because we've seen some communities achieve remarkable things that never happened in the official statistics. So that's the question we're asking. How does the reality on ground match all of those statistics that we have on paper? Do they really align or do they not? That's the essence of this conversation today.
Well, quite timely conversation to have, Mukhtar, because of course, like we had earlier in our conversation, we said it was time to have all of this put out right for Nigerians to understand, also the world at large, to see how this perspective runs. To help us explore this, we're joined by Tijani Abdul-Karim. He's the Executive Director of the Social Economic Research and Development Center, SEDEC, right? If I'm correct.
Yeah, of course. Good morning, listeners.
Thank
Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be here this morning to talk about this, to join this conversation.
Well, I see from your CV already tells it all.
Very impressive.
Well, because as a development professional, you understand what it is in terms of community mobilizing, social activism, and also human rights advocates with experience working around social economic development, governance, citizen participation, and community level intervention. So we look forward to having a swell time.
Of course.
On all of this. Thank you so much for your time with us. Mukhtar, want to help us buy into this?
Like we said before, the statistics. Let's start with every number that we hear every day. We tend to hear all of those numbers. We have statistics telling us inflation is rising or falling. We hear that the government is saying the economy has improved. All of these things, are they reaching the people? That's the question. After years of working in development yourself, Nigeria's real statistics, do they really capture the story that you tend to see on ground in the communities that you work with?
All right, thank you so much, Mukhtar, for having me. So I just don't want to, first of all, this morning start this conversation with boring listeners or viewers with the various statistics and data that we see every day. But what this conversation should focus on is on how realistic, what is the impact, what are the results from there. And I can tell you that we've been in this sector as a development professional and researcher. We've also implemented so many programs that also looks around improving the basic livelihood of young people and even Nigerians. But I can tell you that over the past decade, successive governments have come up with development programs. We've seen programs like the Shopee, we've seen programs like the Empower. Then we see these governments again also coming up with their own various Renew Hope the different intervention programs. And I could tell you clearly that the problem with development program implementation in Nigeria is the fact that there is a lack of coordination. and there is it's not there. There is no way you can actually measure some of these results, even when government keep telling us that, okay, this program, this is what we have achieved so far, but what are the results, what are the impact? There is that thin line that has become very difficult to link the implementation of project intervention program with results of those interventions. And I can tell you clearly that if you look at the life of ordinary Nigeria over the past, in fact, with the coming into government, with the Tinubu administration, you know, there were so many economic crises that had happened that had already affected the basic livelihood. We saw the crisis around the inflation. We saw the crisis around the removal of the fuel subsidy that had, you know, the Nigerian economy is always tied to oil. So immediately anything happens to oil, it affects every sector. Yeah. So with the removal of that subsidy, it affected the wages, it affected prices of food, because, you know, even farmers, they have to transport those goods, and in the process of transporting, fuel needs to be those vehicles need to be filled, and all those things affected everything. And you could see that even despite the fact that Nigeria had a lot of gains around the sustainable development goals over the years from implementing so much intervention program, it rolled back those achievements because it forced a lot of people into poverty. People's wages are no longer able to sustain their basic livelihood. Look at even here in Abuja, where we could see that how much, look, if you remove the cost of transportation, remove the cost of buying of food, remove the cost of even the high rate of cost of rents, at the end of the day, workers are left with nothing to even pay children's school fees or even take care of other loved ones. So these are the challenges that most of this economic crisis had helped in reshaping and causing a decline in the basic livelihood of Nigerians.
So I like the fact that you had to give us a background
so we
understand where this stands for us as a nation and where the challenges comes out most times to play. And so one thing I want to ask basically, does that mean that sometimes we measure the developments incorrectly when we see the job done,
especially based on numbers?
Yes, I think that is one mistake that many people implementing intervention programs are doing, because most times you have a unique project design, and at the end of the day, the right people that this intervention needs to get to are not the people that these interventions are getting into. Take for instance, we had the cost of doing a review of some of the government intervention program a few years back, and we got to understand that during the time that the government was implementing what it called the conditional cash transfer under the last administration, we noticed that because we had a project that was supported by the UK through what called the Mantra project through ANEJ, and while implementing that project, we got to realize that yes, because part of what we're doing on that project was to monitor how this conditional cash transfer was implemented. And you know, through the conditional cash transfer, you had government, we were supposed to identify the poorest of the poor within communities and provide some finances to those households to improve their basic livelihood. So in the course of tracking most of those in the implementation of that intervention program, we got to realize that if you go to some communities, you could see that most of the lists that were being created from those communities were a list of friends, family members, and other community members that were not, you can't even identify them as poor.
Not the vulnerable people.
Not the vulnerable people, not the real people that are supposed to benefit from those intervention programs. So at the end of the day, the government may have a good intention that, okay, this is what I want to do. But most times implementation phases is exposed to corruption risks that also helps in that also at the end of the day it sort of destabilize the whole program, because at the end of the day, maybe the target of the government is to reduce the number of people living in poverty, and also, let's say, reach out to more households But at the end of when this program is being implemented, you will see that it's also is another different kind of beneficiaries that actually benefited from that program. So this is the challenge of program implementation in this country, where government decide that you can sit in Abuja, or you can just identify some people within communities or even political party members to lead programs like this. It leads to weak implementation of those programs in communities.
Now, I'd like for us to look at an aspect that is often, in my opinion, overlooked, which is the people themselves. We oftentimes see these people as beneficiaries of the help from government. But is there not, don't you think they should also be included in helping to find solutions?
Of course.
Rather than just being beneficiaries of
course. I think that's the right thing to do. You know, there is this concept. In 2016, Nigeria signed on to a global framework called the Open Government Partnership. I don't know whether you're aware of that, but there is this what is called the Open Government Partnership. My organization, we were a member of the National Steering Committee of the Open Government Partnership. And when the Open Government Partnership is all about inclusion, governments see the need for government and civil society to sit down together on a table and look at how we can roll out and implement programs that it identify that very, very important to the citizens. And in the course of implementing the OGP, in fact, the OGP framework alone is what made about 29 states have already adopted and signed on to the OGP process in Nigeria. And I can tell you, the OGP, the results you get from implementing the OGP has shown very clearly that government reform can only work perfectly when government, citizens, and civil society sit together on a round table, identify those reforms that is important, look at the need assessments of those reports, and co-implement those reforms. And I can tell you that we have successive, like Nigeria had done the first national action plan, the second and third action plan. We are now planning for the fourth action plan. States like Kogi State, like Plateau State, shining examples, even Kaduna State, are shining examples of how government, citizens, and civil society organizations can come together, co-implement in an intervention programs, and see how they can achieve results. So it's a very, very important way. Inclusion is very important. If we want to achieve development, success in whatever development intervention you are implementing, ensure that you bring citizens and civil society together to co-implement with you.
Okay, so we have this, just like you mentioned, you need to understand the people, understand their basic needs, understand what goes out for them. If not, your what's it called, solution provision
would not work.
Won't
work.
It will make sense, because let's take, for instance, from the legislature point of view, where I know civil society also talked to the legislature to see how they come in and also look at their pet projects, which they call constituency projects. So all of that. So how do you help them identify the people that really need this thing? Because sometimes if you go and provide bore where bore is not needed.
Exactly.
They go where there are roads.
Actually, when we're talking about the constituency project, I belong to the school of thought that sees it as a fraud in Nigeria.
Okay.
Why?
Because my reason for seeing constituency project as a fraud in Nigeria is because it's being used as a way to siphon public fund. We have seen very clearly from various research that we could look. If you check online, you can see so many research from core civil society organizations like Budget, like CISLAG, the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, and even PLAC. Most of those organizations that are working around working around legislative intervention. You see those reports that shows very clearly the level of corruption in constituency projects. So you'll be found that it is not done with the people. You could see that most time is done as a way to pat the back of the legislators. That's the way the constituency project is programmed in Nigeria. And I think Nigeria had several years of sustainable democracy. I think it's high time Nigerians sit down to see how we can come up with the right framework around the role legislature needs to play when it has to do with constituency project. There should be some basic checklist that even gives them the right to put in constituency projects in the budget. Take, for instance, in other places you will see that there is a checklist of how you can engage with communities. There's a report that says, okay, I've done this social community intervention. I had my community from Ward A, Ward B, Ward C, Community A, Community B, Community C has come together and said that, okay, collectively what we want in this constituency is a borehole or a hospital or a market. Then at that time, you as a legislator, you call for a town hall meeting, speak with the community on what is their need. Actually, we all know that it is not the role of a legislator to do all those projects. But you know, in Nigeria, it has become, when you occupy political office, the people always look out to you to do something for them. So since it has become a culture, and you know, there's no way you can tell legislators that this is not your role, you can't do it, because they know if they go back to their constituency, the constituency hold them responsible that, okay, these are the things.
We sent you to represent us there.
Send to represent or ensure that you make sure this thing. Exactly. So, and you know, aside from going to make law, if not those constituency projects, there is no budget that comes to them that they can actually use to support their community. So the whole thing is designed around fraud, and we can, if we want to give it legitimacy, we should create checklists and framework for how the legislators can put in constituency projects in the budget through a structure that has to do with citizen engagement, town hall meetings, and community acceptance through a need assessment framework.
Okay, so I like the fact that you talked about the community acceptance, because that's like the knowledge base is a problem. That's what we see basically these days. So how important is local knowledge in determining whether a development intervention succeeds or should be the right thing to be done? Because from what we see from the legislative point of view now, they just feel it is the work or the role of the legislator. But from your perspective, how are you also advocating and also informing this what's called the community now, or the constituencies now, that there are things that they can do
without even the government?
Actually, communities are aware that legislators have no budget. They are not executive.
So why do they give them so much pressure?
But you see, politics in Nigeria has been built around those kind of favoritism. Okay. Those kind of design that gives so much from public office holders. I can tell you, even if you are not an elected person, public official, immediately you get a political appointment in this country, all the community members will be on your shoulder. They will be on your shoulder. That's the way people are programmed in this country. That puts so much burden on public office holders, and that's why it's also important that we need to improve citizen public awareness around certain rules that people need to understand very clearly. But then you begin to see the way the legislature himself is designed. We have a legislation that they feel that it's also a responsibility for them to put in constituency projects in the budget. Most times this constituency project is not actually because they have that care or feeling for that community or that constituency. But like I said earlier, it's self-centered. It's a way to siphon public funds
and also get their share.
Exactly. You could see that most times. Look at the recent. There was this report that came out by Tracker, an organization that tracked project implementation in Nigeria. You could see that organizations like Border Community Development Commission, so many organizations that has nothing to do with constituency project, implementing project. How can you a health center will be implementing projects that has to do with education?
That's a mismatch.
Yeah, and exactly. So they try to just look for certain agencies of government to just push in constituency project, and they go there with their own contractors. That's what they do, because there are several reports. If you read, showing very clearly that they go there with their own contractors, ensure that those monies get to their contractors, who in fact, you know, there is this cycle of money laundering. Even, I think the EFCC needs to do more, even in going into to begin to see how money is being laundered through constituency project, because there is a huge level of corruption that is being done in the name of constituency projects in Nigeria.
Now let's look at the aspect of, still back to the communities now. Yeah. We've seen where interventions come, and some of these communities, they don't, they don't build resilience. They tend to always depend on aid coming from external forces. So how can we make communities go beyond just waiting for aid at each crisis level and being able to be self-subsistent within their own capacity?
Yeah, I think communities are actually doing well at some point, because we could see that we've been to some communities that will see that communities engage themselves in supporting themselves when it comes to little infrastructures like irrigation process, road maintenance, even most of those roads, because all these things are happening. Too many weight is going towards in the direction of the legislature, because we have a local government system that is not working. Understand? And you know the local government is supposed to be the closest to the people. But the local government systems are not working. And the people don't see, in fact, the local government chairman that we see as elected are just as appointed. That's what we see, because the government in power will just go ahead and create a list and share that list with the State Independent Electoral Commission, which is also on the payroll of the government in power at the subnational level.
But the issue of autonomy of the local government, would that change the time?
Of course, when this administration was able to secure a Supreme Court judgment giving local government that autonomy, but we all celebrated that judgment. We all felt that, okay, this government has shown resilience, has shown commitment to the political will to ensure that the local government gets its footing. But at the end of the day, it just becomes just like a political statement, because we've not seen so much commitment by this administration, the President Bola Tinubu's administration, to drive that political will with certain actions that will ensure local government autonomy.
Well, I like the way they were taking this deep into the political point of view, because with the build-up to 2027 general election, there's a whole lot of expectation from citizens,
the government and
then from the government as well. So we're looking for how that balance can be, where we talked about earlier about public trust, where we know there are a lot of reforms coming in, but how can we reach the poorest of the poor? Because when campaign starts, you see all manner of style of campaign,
of course,
door to door, every of it.
You see stipends and peanuts handed to people.
So I'm trying to see how the minds of citizens can be better structured, if that's the word to use, to know what the dividends of democracy is. And it starts from that campaign period, where you can hold people accountable to also ease the job of civil society groups who want the betterment for people. So what's the workload? What's the strategy and plans your organization is putting out to equip the minds of citizens?
So at my organization, Socio-Economic Research and Development Center, what we do is that we, especially now that the elections are coming close, we know that the political of public, those that are aspiring for public offices will always come up with their agenda, their propaganda, their vision, their mission, and all that, to convince citizens to vote for them. And so what we do is that we try to, like in the last election, before the last election, what we did was we had a series of a town hall meeting with especially young people. We believe that the young people are a strong force in every election. We had those town hall meetings, citizen engagement sessions, where we provided them with the right information on how they can engage those aspiring for public offices. Because that engagement even starts from local. While they campaign to those communities, we encourage them that yes, they should provide what is called community charters of demands, or like citizens charter of demand. So that when they come and tell you that, okay, this is why I'm aspiring for social office, you tell them, okay, this is our demand. Can you sign these demands? Tell us among those in the list of all this, that which one you can help us to achieve. So we can start engaging. Citizens can start engaging public as aspirants for public office in a strategic way, to ensure that when they are elected, you hold them accountable, because accountability is very, very important. in all this phase, because citizen has a responsibility to hold public officers accountable. And when we don't do that, this whole thing comes back to us. Because when you begin to accuse government for not providing that road, for not providing that hospital, for not providing that water, you should also be speaking to yourself. How have you engaged government? What have you done? What role have you played in ensuring that government provide those basic infrastructures and amenities that are required of your community?
Now, another aspect I would like for us to talk about is still bringing back to the government and people relations in terms of community.
Yeah.
We tend to see development plans, like you mentioned earlier. A lot of them, all of those plans are in paper, but they don't produce good results oftentimes. Where is the gap, and how can we bridge that gap?
Yeah, the reason, like I said, that they don't produce those, first of all, is the structural design of those development plans. Most times you see development plans that are self-centered. Even in the implementation, you will see that most of them have political undertone. When you have development plan, you say, okay, let's focus on members of my political party. When you have development plan that says, let's focus, I want you to focus more on people from my region, or from my community, or from my state. So at the end of the day, there is no transparency, there is no accountability. You also have if you also have development plan that are not inclusive. When you have a development plan that you do not involve the people, the society organizations, even ordinary citizens to be part of the design and the implementation, those development plans tend to fail. You understand? Another aspect you look at is the corruption aspect. Most development plans in Nigeria, there is no, what I refer to as, there is no, they didn't conduct a corruption risk assessment. When you do not do a corruption risk assessment of those development plans, then you, at the end of, during the process of implementing those development plans, you end up making that plan vulnerable to corruption. And that's why you see, like the example I gave you earlier about government sincerity to implement a conditional cash transfer, build a register that is that ensures that the money gets to the right people. But at the end of the day, because of they did not come up with the right corruption risk framework to assess what are the likely corruption that
the loopholes that could be exploited.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, you see that those loopholes that you did not identify becomes a problem in the implementation of that development plan.
Okay, so my concern basically is on sustainability, because you've done this over time, you understand how this works out. So let's talk about sustainability, especially in Nigeria, with its own peculiarity in terms of what we see. You've mentioned corruption being a problem. You've mentioned where people need to be knowledgeable about what is needed.
And lack of inclusivity.
And, you know, so all of that is what is important. So talk to us where we have seen many programs launched with great expectations, only for their impact to disappear, you know, once funding or political attention moves elsewhere. And that's a major concern, because that's why I mentioned the issue around election, because as it's coming, promises will be made, you know, but how can projects which have been launched be sustained so that the needed goal of it is really achieved in the long run?
Yeah, so I think most of the challenge we have around project implementation also goes to the fact that it also still revolve around even infrastructure. That's why you see that at some point you see a government starts a road project. When the next government comes, it abandons that project and start looking for its own road projects to award. And that's how it is with also development plan. If you recall, the last administration of the late President Muhammad Buhari started this project they call, I'm just using that as an example here, the NPower.
Yes.
You can recall that NPower.
Of course.
And you could say, I can tell you that when we did a review of the implementation of the NPower, we got to see that there were a lot of young Nigerians that actually has transited from what that through the NPower had transited into creating businesses for themselves, and also had improved their basic livelihood. But when this administration came, it came up with its own, it abandoned the NPower program and came up with its own programs. Understand? So at the end of the day, we have a culture of not sustaining programs in this country. Even if the government wanted to start its own program, it would have looked at, okay, what has been done and achieved through the Empower, is it working? How can we strengthen it? Even if we are going to rename it, can we redesign it in such a way that it can move to another phase? You understand? That's how development program is supposed to be designed, moving it from one phase to the other. But in Nigeria, what we do is that a government comes into power, starts a development plan, and immediately it leaves government. The next one that comes abandons it, and
a new one
starts a new one.
So
and
continuity is a problem.
Continuity is a problem.
Government is supposed to be in continuity.
Yes, exactly. So we need to have that conversation, especially in the legislative. We need to have that conversation, how we can come up with legislation that strengthen the sustainability around project design. As long as we feel we know that, yes, we adopted a program by legislation, government should be able to sustain those programs so that at the end of the day, it moves from phase to phases and strengthen its whole. Because those are the programs that you can actually use in building your indicators around poverty and unemployment. Because if you see that if those programs are implemented perfectly, you can provide the right data for you to use it to measure what has been achieved around unemployment, around the poverty and all that.
Now, I'd like for us to look at one intersection that your organization focuses on, which is evidence in public sector. Because we hear a lot of evidence. We hear that project should be evidence-based.
Yeah.
We hear that government should give us evidence in terms of what they are doing. So what does that really mean in practical terms?
So naturally, data is a very, very important factor when you are designing project or even implementing project, and you cannot get data without having the right evidence.
Okay.
And in the development sector, what we do is wherever government is trying to implement a project, or even we want to implement a project,
yes,
that is being funded, what you need to do initially is to have that baseline survey. And in the process of doing that baseline survey, you will know exactly where you're starting from, and what are the current indicators on ground, and what, with the implementation of your project, within the lifespan of your project, what are the indicators that you expect, that is called the expected outcomes, that you expect at the end of this project, or looking at the first phase of this project. This is the results that we are going to get. And I think almost all development programs in Nigeria, both within the civil society and even the government, are all designed for these basic purposes of looking at what is the current status and how we can improve on that status to get an outcome that we envision. But along the line, the problem with implementing projects in Nigeria, like I keep saying, is the fact that, number one, the political will to sustain those programs, the motive of the administration to that is if it's sincere, because most times, like I say clearly, most program implementation are designed as a way to siphon public funds. Understand? And some are just designed as a way to is it like a kickback or to appease political party, compensate political party members and all that. So if that motives are clearly citizen driven, you will see that most those implementation programs will go in a smooth way. Like I tell you, let me give you an instance. I know when when the Shopee program, if you can recall the Shopee program, when the Shopee program was implemented, that was during Dr. Professor Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. I can tell you that many young entrepreneurs in Nigeria grew from the Shopee program. It's not like I'm not even telling you, because I know so many young people that become established business, that had established businesses that are running, but because government supported them through the Shopee program. So this is how you can measure progress. Several years after the Shopee program, I can still count over 100 small organizations that have benefited from that program and now run businesses, enterprises, because government has supported that program. That is how you measure development program. Because every day we keep hearing about renewed hope, this renewed hope, that there has, at the end of the day, you have so many programs on ground that government cannot even measure. And most times they'll bring out data and statistics that you cannot actually pinpoint how they are getting these data and all these statistics. So it's only when you involve people, when you build an inclusive project implementation system, that people can also say that, okay, while you are tracking the data on how you are spending your funds on the implementation, let us also track the implementation strategies. Let us also track how we can, what are the likely challenges that will affect effective implementation of those projects. So it's only when you involve a lot of actors in this whole process that you can actually, that the government can actually get it wrong when it comes to project implementation.
Well, there's a whole lot to this conversation,
certainly
and it has all sides and coins, because of course you've mentioned we have policies, we have plans. It's not like we lack the ideas to all
it's
of
the implementation that
actually Nigerians have great minds with great ideas, and we always have amazing, in fact, so many programs and policies and interventions programs. Most African countries come to this country to get ideas. Like with the Open Government Partnership, we started what is called the Beneficial Ownership Register in Nigeria, and in fact in Africa. And I can tell you now, since Nigeria came up with that design of Beneficial Ownership Register, where you can actually track ownership of companies and how to know exactly who are the beneficial owners of companies. Take for instance, you know, we through much corruption in the procurement sector, especially as public officers come up with fictitious companies and use it to their bad for public fund, awarding the contracts to their own companies. So with the Beneficial Ownership Register, you can be able to track who actually is the beneficial owner of those companies. That was an amazing register that was developed in Nigeria, and I can tell you many African countries are already coming to Nigeria to learn from that
initiative.
Yeah, that initiative. So Nigerians have the right; they have amazing policies, programs, but when it comes to implementation, there's always this selfish mindset around what is the benefit. Why is it benefiting me? How is it benefiting my kinsman? How is it benefiting my community? How is it benefiting members of my political party? But immediately you begin to think development in that direction, you have already misled the vision or the mission of that development.
But this initiative we talked about just now, how come we've not been able to use it? Is it deliberate, or was it that they are, in terms of fishing out some loopholes, like we've seen the controversy of a fake agency and all of that? Why hasn't all this technology or initiative been able to flag that off before it happened?
Yeah, you see, like you said about the agencies are not registered the Corporate Affairs Commission. Yes. But actually, with the beneficial register which is being managed by the Corporate Affairs Commission.
Can we extend that to maybe the public service?
Yes, I think public service also have that is why we have the head of service, and there's also an organization called the Bureau of Public Service Reform.
Yes.
Yeah. So those are part of the responsibilities of those agencies to ensure that issues like this, government can be able to track what are the reforms that need to be in place to ensure the effective and efficient framework to work around the public sector. But like I said earlier, the problem we have in this country is not the fact that we have two sets of leadership. We have people in leadership position and leadership leaders with vision. So when you look at these two things, you can see a leader. Two people can be anybody can be a leader, but who has the vision? Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people in Nigeria occupying public offices in Nigeria are just people in leadership position. Many people in Nigeria that are occupying leadership position in Nigeria are just people in leadership position, not leaders with vision. So you could see that because when you have a leader that has a vision, even before he occupied that public office, he already has a design on this is what I want to achieve within these 4 years that I'm going to be there, and I expect that this is my blueprint, and this is my team, and this is at the end of the day when I'm leaving here in 4 years, at least I can be measured on what I brought to the table that I will going to implement. But what we see is that people that don't take responsibility, the kind of leaders we have in this country over the past few years are leaders that don't care. In other countries, you see most of the things that are happening in Nigeria, and most of those leaders will shy away from speaking about it. Yes. In other countries, they will be forced to resign. Those leaders will have to resign, even without the public forcing them. They willingly will know that yes, an agency that they lead had also like what is happening even with the fake agency in a country that works perfectly. There are several agencies that by their leadership by now would have been placed on suspension or even had voluntarily resigned because of inefficiencies. Because it's most of those things. If government is saying that there is a fake agency, then there is an act of negligence in somewhere. And who's supposed to take responsibility? And public funds has been allocated to those agencies.
Even in the budget?
Yes, even in the budget.
Official budget of Nigeria.
And we have an appropriation committee.
Anyway, I like the fact that you raised this because it's a very, very crucial discussion that has been in the front burner, and questions have been asked around all of this. That's why we had to bring this at a timely discussion to talk about all of this. It's one thing to have ideas, just like you've mentioned, nothing to have the implementation come out to play and then sustainability plan. But from what you've said so far and from what we've seen, it's easy for you as an expert to detect or know a project that will die off very soon because of the implementation issues and then continuity. So how can this be solved in a way that from experts like you, you have what's it called, town hall meetings, you meet with different stakeholders.
You've got first-hand experience.
You know, first-hand experience. So walk the people through and also talk to policymakers so that, because what we all can't do from our end is advocate and also put out recommendations. So talk to us about how inclusion of people, you know, the very vulnerable people is very important, so that the projects you're doing, the market, that's the market you're selling, can really give you the expected results you're looking for.
Yes, so what you're saying actually is sustainability plan.
Yes.
Because to me, if you are doing any project without an effective sustainability plan, that project will even fail. Because first of all, when we are talking about sustainability plan, we will be looking around issues around the community inclusion, issues around the co-designing and co-implementation, yes, issues around framework, short-term and long-term frameworks for those projects. And most of the project implementation design and interventions in Nigeria, especially by politicians, always live within the lifespan of their time in government.
Okay.
So I think project implementation needs to be driven by public service, not political elected officials or even appointed of officials.
Yes.
We should have a framework where public, that when I'm talking about public service servants now, I'm talking about those working as administrators in those agencies.
Yes.
They should be the core anchor or drivers of those programs. It should be their design. You can decide to come and give it another name, but let there be a project that is designed by that agency of government that is there for you to continue on it. Even if you leave, the project is there. The next person can come and give it another name, but let that program be brought to life. It should stay within that agency or ministry or department of government, and there should be the one that will sustain it. Then another angle you can look at it is having a structure that involves citizen and government on the table. Just like we did with the Open Government Partnership, we have on the state steering national, even at the state, we have on the National Steering Committee, we have 11 civil society and 11 government sitting on the same table,
yes,
looking at the National Action Plan, looking at what we need to do to improve budget transparency, what we need to do to improve anti-corruption, what we need to do to improve extractive transparency, and all that. So when you sit on the table, even in the next government, because take for like in the National Action Plan was started by President Muhammad Buhari.
Yes.
But when this government came in, we sat on the same table with this with the new leaderships, and look at how we can continue to implement the National Action Plan. So projects should be designed in such a way that there is already a document that says this is how we are implementing this project within these spaces. Whichever administration that comes in will continue, and if it leaves, another administration that comes in should continue on that project. So unless we agree on that, we'll still be seeing projects that have been done and abandoned running across the country.
Well, it's been a fantastic conversation.
Most definitely. It's been a great one.
Trust me, we need you to really sit and break this down if possible. Sit at its very town hall
to get the insights and perspective.
The insights of all of this, because if we don't keep track with all of these things, it becomes a failure in the long run.
Of course.
And we know that development work is very crucial at this point, especially for our community base, like we talked about. Because we have the issue of insecurity that's actually affected a lot of people.
Yes, of course.
Poverty line is something else. People are merely surviving on a daily, and we need these interventions to get to them. And the plans, just like you said, we have a lot of policies from different
agencies and all of them,
you know, that come into play. But over time, it don't stay to the long run. And when we have fresh one coming in, it kind of disrupts what we had previously. So it's time we need to understand the maths and, you know, follow the sustainable plans and get it out there for Nigerians to benefit in the long run. But before we let you go, in one word, talk to us about Nigerians' mindset, because it's one thing to attack the government, it's one thing to say government is not doing this. Our behavioral attitude to things.
That's
because 2027, community members need to understand that it is your life you're playing with. You're going to 2027 under election cycle, and it's under 4 years. When they give you something small, you just sit back and ask, what can our mindset change to know that the government is not because they are just there, you put them in office, and you need to hold them accountable so that the dividends of democracy can get to you, not just at that minute of the electoral process.
Well, for citizens and civil society organizations and for other citizens, I think what's important is that we need to keep engaging. We need to be able to always hold government and public office holders accountable, and we need to have the right framework to be at the table. Because there is this adage that says if you're not on the table, so you know you won't be part of what is being discussed.
Yes.
So citizens have a responsibility to be on that table to discuss. We must engage. We should not allow flimsy political differences to be the reason why we are not on the table. As citizens, we have a responsibility. Government will come, government will go. But we have, our community stays. We have a right to ensure that we engage government, we hold them responsible, and ensure that the right thing is done to improve basic livelihood.
Well, that's a fantastic way to wrap it up. You've been very amazing at your work with CIDA. Of course, your expertise has actually shown that you understand what this should look like for the Nigerian people. And we hope that Nigerians watching our moment understand this narrative and will also keep their heads on track and understand that if you don't do what is right for yourself, trust me, at the end of the day, the government will come and go, just like he mentioned.
But the country remains, and the community is still going to be there. Of course. The consequence of our actions or inactions will always be there for us to face as community people.
So until we change our mindsets, we will just stay in the same circle. Thank you so much, our guest, Tijani Abdulkareem, for your wonderful time with us. It's been beautiful having you speak to us. That's the Executive Director of SEDEC. He's been fantastic with what development work should look like in Nigeria and also align with other clients. And we look forward to seeing the Nigerian system adopt that mindset and give us the best picture of what Nigeria should be in developmental work. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you so much.
All right, and of course, this is the size of this particular discussion segment, and we look forward to having our engagements. And of course, we told you earlier we have a lot of things wrapped up. Mukhtar.
Of course, we talked about development. Now we'll have to talk about one area which has an hindered development, which is insecurity, and that conversation will obviously come up in the 10 o'clock hour, and it's one that I know our viewers would not want to miss.
Of course, that's something you wouldn't want to miss at all. So please stay with us. We'll be right back after this time.
Hello everyone, welcome to Taste and Texture. The plan is to prepare an easy Nigerian delicacy and we will be breaking down the entire process with you. In today's episode of the program, we'll be focusing on moi moi. Moi moi is always a delicious and simple breakfast option in a Nigerian home. This one is a recipe that is filling, delicious and nutritious. Main ingredients: beans, onions, red bell peppers and scotch bonnet, eggs, groundnut oil, salt, seasoning, crayfish, and water. Step 1. Pick your preferred type of beans and add to a bowl. Step 2. Add water and soak the beans for a few minutes. Step 3. Peel the beans with your hands or a blender and add enough water to make the skin float. Step 4. Pour the water and rinse, then repeat the process till the skin is peeled off. Step 5. Boil your eggs till soft and set aside to cool down, then slice the eggs. Step 6. Add the beans, peppers, onions, crayfish, salt, seasoning, oil, and enough water to your blender and blend till smooth. Step 7. Pour the moi moi batter into a bowl, leaf, or foil depending on your preference. Step 8. Add the sliced eggs into each bowl of batter and place them into a pot of water. Step 9. Cover the pot and allow the moi moi to cook for about 40 minutes. That's it, your moi moi is ready to serve and enjoy. You can pair it with pap, custard, gari, and other options. That's it on today's episode of the program Taste and Texture. Hope you will try these recipes in your various homes and hope you enjoyed the program. Join me same time next week for another episode of the program. I am Saadatu Garba. Thank you for watching. See you again.
Imagine having the power of television, movies, news, and entertainment right in your pocket. Welcome to Free TV App, Nigeria's all-in-one digital TV experience. With Free TV App, you get access to over 100 live TV channels, breaking news, sports, movies, kids shows, and more, all from a single mobile app. No decoder stress, no complicated setup, just download, open, and start watching. Free TV is television reimagined for the digital age. To get started, simply search Free TV on the Google Play Store or Free TV NG on the Apple App Store, or scan the QR code on your screen. Once installed, register in seconds using your phone number, email, WhatsApp, Google ID, or Apple ID. Secure OTP verification ensures safe and seamless access. Inside the app, explore content directly from the home screen or navigate easily using the various tabs. The Live TV section gives you access to over 100 licensed channels, complete with an electronic program guide, EPG, pause, rewind, and catch-up features. The Video On Demand library offers up to 500 hours of curated content, including Nollywood movies, drama series, documentaries, kids and educational programs. You can resume playback, save favorites, and download content to watch offline. The News tab delivers real-time updates across breaking news, sports, entertainment, technology, and pop culture, all in one place. Free TV is more than an app. It's a digital revolution in broadcasting. Download the Free TV app today.
snow? Tired of the bad TV signals? Nigeria has gone digital. Introducing Free TV, the national platform for every Nigerian. Get 100 plus channels immediately. Sports, news, and entertainment in your native language with clear picture quality. Whether you're in the city or the village, our satellite signal reaches every corner of 36 states from day one. No monthly subscription, just a compatible decoder and you are set. It's a national asset built for you. Take the show on the road, download the Free TV app and stream your favorite channels anywhere. Starting this May, scan to download the app or call 0700 388 7277. Free TV, digital TV for free. Brought to you by NBC.
Our language, our vibrant culture and colorful tradition, our industrious and hospitable people. This is Nigeria, a nation that prides itself in abundant human and natural resources. From east to west, north to south, we sparkle, we shine, we have a common bond. Fellow Nigerians, let's do away with ethnic, religious, and regional sentiments that divide us as a people. God has blessed us and empowered us to find strength in diversity. Let's make our faith and way of worship our source of unity as we build a nation that stays united. Nigeria, together today, together always. This is a public announcement brought to you by Global Television.
In an age of breaking news, you need a trusted source that prioritizes accurate, factual, and unbiased reporting. This is AM News, and I am Ubong Osoro.
On Global Television, our news is rooted in verified and authoritative storytelling that keeps you educated, informed, and enlightened on all the issues that matter to you. I am Sadia Yakubu. This is Midday News.
You can trust our multi-platform news broadcast real-time and fast-check stories for all the big local and foreign headlines round the clock. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. This is News Express.
Our array of anchors delivers the news to our teeming viewers, breaking it down with context and perspective. This is News Cycle on Global Television. I am Anieti Patrick.
And the flagship news is your hub for the day's most engaging stories. This is News Prime, and I am Jumai Manson.
Did you miss any of our news rounds? No worries. Catch up at 10 p.m. and midnight, 7 days of the week. I am Mukhtar Kasim.
Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. We're active across all social media platforms at Global TV NG.
At Witchtech Cables, we don't just make cables, we deliver excellence. Our products are built with advanced technology, trusted for their unmatched quality and durability. With a wide range of cables, swift delivery, and continuous innovation, we stay ahead of the market demand. We are proudly Nigerian, fully indigenous, yet world-class. Backed by a professional team, strong technical support, and a deep commitment to customer satisfaction, Witchtech Cables is more than a brand, it's a promise. Witchtech Cables, quality cables better than the best.
A very beautiful morning it is to still here, and of course a whole lot of discussion. Like Mukhtar earlier told us that we've talked about developmental projects, but it's time to look at these issues and see how to tackle it head on how this conversation should be. And of course, on this particular segment, we'll be looking at the issues around the rescue mission so far in Nigeria and how insecurity has been a problem, but the government and also security agencies are looking out to seeing how this can be solved, and people can bank on the government and security agencies through this rescue mission to see how they can stand tall. But let's walk you through this process where Nigeria has witnessed a disturbing rise in kidnappings over the last decade, with schools, highways, rural communities, and even urban centers becoming recurring targets for criminal gangs and armed groups, from the infamous abduction of the Chibok schoolgirls in 2014 to the Kankara Jangebe Greenfield University and Kuriga school kidnappings. Thousands of Nigerians have experienced the trauma of adoption. The entire communities have lived up under constant fear as kidnappers increasingly exploit weak security presence, porous forests, poor intelligence gathering, unemployment, and proliferation of illegal weapons. Yet, in recent weeks, a series of successful rescue operations has renewed optimism. Well, that starts with the latest breakthrough that came in Kwara State, where 176 residents abducted during attacks in Waru and Nku communities in Kaima local government area regained freedom after spending nearly 6 months in captivity. This followed the successful rescue of pupils and teachers of Orire schools, whose release was welcomed across the country. Of course, we saw how that played out across the nation where there were calls for this. While these developments have been celebrated as victories for security agencies and governments, they also raise important questions. Are these isolated successes or signs of a changing security landscape? That's one question that's been asked. Also, has Nigeria developed a more effective rescue strategy? And another one comes in with, can intelligence-led operations permanently weaken kidnapping networks? That's what is on the front burner right now. Questions have been asked. But most importantly, what should government do to prevent kidnappings instead of merely responding after they occur? Well, today's edition examines whether Nigeria is entering a new phase in the fight against kidnapping and what more must be done to guarantee citizens' safety. And that's where we have a whole lot of conversation with Sarah.
Honestly, that was a very interesting prelude, and the conversation is, I just had a lot of questions in my mind when you were reading that interlude. How safe are our schools?
Yes.
Do we have to resort to seeing that we pay ransom after kidnappings have happened, when we could have actually have prevented those incidents happening in the first place? And what's the government's response? Are we involving the community people in our policing? Because those are questions and the basics that have got to be sorted out before we can have a security situation where all Nigerians can be proud of them. Because if we do not have a security situation where we involve the people from the very get-go, then it's almost impossible for you to get solutions. And that's why we've seen recurring decimals of kidnappings. But then we've seen positives also with the Orire abduction becoming a history, because the people have now been reunited with their families. And we've seen in Kwara State again over how many hundreds of victims were freed. So those are gains that we've seen in the fight against insecurity in Nigeria. I would like for that to continue. At the end of this conversation, would like for our viewers to understand why we've seen kidnappings continue to thrive in Nigeria. We would also like to see the significance of the recent rescue operations across the country, and why have those missions, why do we resort to, like I said earlier, paying ransoms rather than preventing the incidents from happening, that's what we're talking about, and much more.
Well, that's the focus that this conversation would actually take us to, because of course, like we mentioned, is one thing to be proactive and that thing to be reactive. And a lot of concerns is around the fact that why do we need to wait? Is the intelligence gathering that's a problem, or is that the government is not doing enough? Because the trauma is something you cannot try at all. You cannot try that. You can't keep having that going back and forth all the time. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, if you look at our security situation, is it proactive or reactive? The answer is clear. We've been more reactive than being proactive. Even though we've seen initiatives like the Safe School initiative, which is supposed to be a proactive measure in making sure that schools are safe and we don't get to see children abducted in schools, example. But over time, we've seen that lapse continue to happen, where we've seen situations where before abductions happen, we've seen that troops who were close to those schools were withdrawn. I think that incident happened in Kebbi State, where troops were withdrawn, and then hours after, we saw that school children were abducted. Why did that happen? That's one important question that we've still not seen answered. We've seen the state government at the time trading blame, saying it's the federal government saying no, it's this and that. We've seen issues like that. So being reactive is just you saving face and doing damage control. The real solution is when you start to be proactive in tackling insecurity. And that's one thing that Nigeria needs to adopt more consciously. We have a bit of that. Like I said, the Safe School initiative is a proactive measure, but we need to see more of it happen across board. And that's very important across Nigeria and even just not from the federal government, even communities have got to play a role in all of these proactive measures. When you see something as a community person, do you just keep it to yourself because you're scared, or do you report to the authorities who can actually swing into actions to take? And we've seen communities also being culpable, because I saw a recent incident where someone was apprehended. He's said to be a suspect, and he was dwelling in that community for a long time. And some of those people did not say anything, maybe out of fear. But as community people, we need to also speak out. When we see something as it concerns our security, we have got to speak up. And that's one of the ways we can have solutions to a problem of insecurity.
Okay, but I like the fact that we understand it from this perspective. Also understand, we want people to see how this can get out of the way, because kidnapping is not a good story to tell. The fear, the psychological trauma, even after the rescue mission, that's where we have concerns come into play. And of course, let's understand this basically from the background of Given. We've seen where the rescue operations, especially for that of Kwara, because we know when the Orire community citizens were adopted, a lot of concerns were raised, and then the North Forum had also come out to say, make it across the
it should be across board, not only of the southern part.
So sentiment was also coming to play. We saw a lot of concerns around that, and then good thing enough that just while that conversation was still ongoing, we saw Kwara having that rescue operation, which is actually the best way to balance to respond to that. And it's quite encouraging to see that. Kudos to the security operatives, kudos to Nigerian government for coming through for the people and ensuring that there's a safe space for Nigerian students, because we also see the issue around the Safe School initiative being called for. That, of course, we've had that in a long time. So why are we not?
Why hasn't it been? Why hasn't if you remember our earlier conversations, you talked about how we have policies, but we cannot build results from those policies. So the Safe School initiative is one thing that is an epitome of that particular phenomenon, because we have that initiative, but how has it translated to making our schools safer over time? That's a problem. And another aspect is technology. We've seen, I saw a video recently online where some of the insurgents, some of those criminals in the forest are deploying technology and all of those things in their own plight. So how much has our security operatives, how much has Nigeria been able to inculcate technology in our fight against insecurity? Those are questions that we should be asking, because we've seen that the warfare we're fighting is not just kinetic. It's taken too many different dimensions, and it's one that we cannot use one particular aspect and say troops must be on ground at all times. That's very important. We need to have troops, and the foot and the boots must be on ground to fight them. But of course, there are other methods that you can also employ as a country in making sure that you are able to tackle the problem head on and get solutions which will be better for our country.
Well, let's look at the facts that build up to the rescue mission in Kwara State. Well, for Kwara operation, we see that 176, like we said, were rescued. Kwara rescue operation, Orire rescue security strategy, also intelligence gathering, military collaboration, police role, DSS involvement, all of that came to play to see that Nigeria put an end to this issue around insecurity and kidnapping. Since it became actually a serious business.
Yes.
And at some point it was really worrisome where some of these adopters, their loved ones don't even know what they do. They just see that. So there was this very what's the word to use now, where they asked the wife of one of the adopters, said, where did the daughter say he went for kidnapping?
It's become a norm.
It's a norm, and it's a problem, and we need to find a way where prevention should stand more, which starts with intelligence gathering, equipping the minds of community residents within those localities, because you cannot tell where it will happen. So let's look at prevention and rescue mission. Just like Mutera said, it's better to be proactive than reactive. Prevention and rescue is not the same story. Community policing is one thing that's in the front burner. Of course, we've seen it happening, and then it's been something that's been calling for. Although we've seen issues back and forth to sustainability plan and not being controlled by the state actors, that's the governors themselves. We've also seen where they call for forest security technology. Also.
Very important. Forest security, Anita, is one that we tend to ignore. Exactly. You see the Sambisa forest in Borno State. We've seen a lot of forest areas in Kaduna and even in the southern part where we have thick vegetation. These people turn that to their hideout, to their safe space. And we see a lot of our forest areas were left unguarded for a long time. And that's what bred this culture of taking people from the city center deep into the forest, because those are things that allowed them to thrive. But we've seen initiatives. I know the Kaduna State government last week commissioned a new initiative that would guard the forest. We've seen forest guard also in Oyo State and other states. So that's one aspect that I think if we are able to get right, we'll see that we have a bit of succor when it comes to fighting insecurity.
Well, talk about the best way, because technology is also one thing we need to also take advantage of. Surveillance is very important. We talked about state policing debates and back and forth. We also need that.
Like we said, like I told you earlier, I saw a footage where the terrorists themselves are currently using drones and all those advanced technologies. If they can do that, why should we not as a country, which I believe we have more purchasing power than the terrorists, and in spite of their sponsors, why wouldn't we also use this technology to help us be able to detect, to make to even attack them aerially and all of those things? So technology is, for me, if we are able to employ it correctly, it can serve as a game changer in our fight against insecurity.
Well, while we're looking at that, we also have this video clip that we want to bring your way, talking to you about how this rescue mission has been, showing the mindset and the idea to how the issue around adoption has become a problem, and how this can be put out strongly for Nigerians to understand that victims' rehabilitation is very important. We need to stand really tall to ensure that we get the minds of people at peace, because it's one thing for you to be thinking of just an environment, and the next thing you're taking to the forest, just like Mutara said, that the forest is a place where you cannot even play around with, because that's where
you don't know the terrain.
You don't know the terrain, because so these people who do the adoption, they really move around these terrains.
Yes.
They mark
They've made it their safe space, basically.
So from what we have on the screen there, you have where it was really a whole of psychological trauma for these victims, and it is a problem that we have in the country, and we hope that this doesn't keep going back and forth every time we have issues around adoption. Because imagine these children, see them just munching on something.
They'll live with the trauma for a long time, Anita, and that's one problem, because when someone is a victim, he comes back, he's never the same. Your life has changed forever, and it's one that you cannot really get back. So that's why we also the experts have advocated for, before they are taken back and reunited with their families, we need to do some psychological evaluation on their mental state of mind, and they need to undergo therapy, because the trauma is one that one cannot imagine except you are one who has experienced it. So that's something that we also need to have the searchlight on. How are we able to help victims cope beyond saying, okay, we're giving them money, the government has said we will sponsor them and all of this, but are you looking at their state of mind? That's an aspect that is very important, and we should be given as much prominence and prominence as much as we're giving them financial assistance.
Well, while we're looking at the assistance and how that should play out for these victims, there's a whole lot to learn from this, and we hope that time would tell, as we see that rescue missions is in the top burner, or the top conversations right now for security experts and also the government, because they want to see how that pans out, and how they can put an end to the whole idea around all of this. We look forward to seeing that. Well, as Nigeria continues to battle these issues around the threats and also the kidnapping, because highways now is not even safe. Most people are very skeptical
traveling
to travel, and it's a concern. Just like Mutan and I had earlier with the newspaper review segments, where we saw that flight tickets not even that's cheap. That's the word to use, not even, because it takes, people go through a lot to ensure that they can raise funds to pay their flight tickets. And you know, what we pray for is just safety for you to get to your destination, because highways, schools, remote communities, criminal gangs have inflicted pains on thousands of families, turning ransom demands into a thriving criminal enterprise. We saw earlier in the papers also, Mutar, where the farmer was asked to pay
100 million. Where do you expect a farmer to get 100 million from?
That's a touch on its own because you're dealing with fear for your life, and then you're dealing with the panic. Can my family risk? And where would they even see this kind of money to raise?
It's crazy, Anita, because like you said, 100 million. If the person, I'm not saying farming is anything bad, but if the person had 100, he might not be in that farm.
Why would they do
or he might even, or in a different dimension, not the subsistence agriculture that the person is. And you're saying he should bring 100 million. Where would he get? First of all, you've traumatized him. You've traumatized his entire family, and you've put his whole life is in jeopardy. And it's something that is not even something that we should actually, anyone should go through, and it's something that has become a recurring decimal. Even though, like we've said, we've seen light at the end of tunnel with a lot of rescue operations, but we need to go past rescue operations to making sure that we prevent all of this from happening. We can't have a perfect situation because these are things that happen across boards. It's not only Nigeria that grapples with insecurity, but we should not compare ourselves in terms of saying because other countries are having their own insecurity, then it is fine for us to manage to deal with to stay with our own insecurity. It's not something we should condone. It's not something, because to an extent it has become a culture where people feel, let's just pay the ransom. How long can we continue to pay ransom for? That's the question.
No, we can't keep up with that, Mutar, because what do we really do? On a daily, because if the more we keep paying ransom, the more it becomes a problem.
Yes.
Because over time, like I said, it's turned into real-time business.
It's become an economy of its own.
so while we're looking at survival, we can't be paying ransom because that money should have been channeled somewhere, and survival should stand up more better for the people than just, we keep hanging our heads, trusting that funds will come in the long run, and then there's no fund anywhere. So it's a problem. We need to look out for the best way to deal with these issues if we want to have the best answers for us as a nation. So the solution is get the Safe School Initiative to be done, get that to stand out for the people, and then also ensure that community-based, the community policing is something you cannot afford to play with at all. That's what we're looking at. Intelligence gathering can work with community policing from what we've seen, where people can share information, vital information with security operatives, tell them what is happening around them, tell them the concerns they have, and that will signal the best way for them to tackle these issues. And so if we don't put out, because I really wanted to see where security operatives can find it better, because we've seen them go through water, go through the mountains, go through this forest when the rescue mission came in for the Rire community. And also for Kwara, even that not shown us the full clip of what it was like. But we know that even they to pay the ultimate price. They pay the ultimate price on a daily, because it's not all the time that we get to see those who have paid the ultimate price of rescuing people out of this forest.
Of course, we saw, talking about the ultimate price with the other Orire, or is it Kwara, we had victims. We had about 3
That was Orire as well. Yeah.
3 security personnel lost their lives. And even though I like the fact that the president has said for the improvement of the welfare of soldiers, but even looking at those soldiers, how compensated are they? How motivated are they in terms of knowing that they're putting their lives on the line for Nigeria? Are their families in a good place? If you can motivate your troops, then I think that would actually help us to get them to be adequately motivated to fight this insecurity. Because if you keep troops on ground and they have families, they're thinking, my families have not fed, I'm also not eating right, that is not something that you want to have for a troop member. Because if you're not taking care of them, there's no how they can deliver and perform their duties on the battlefield.
Well, we're looking at all of this concern, and one thing we want to see is, yes, there are rescue missions that has come to bear, and from what we've seen with these kids, because I'm really excited that they came back alive, because these are future leaders of the country, and for families who were really heartbroken, because so it was really a concern. For the state government, it was a concern. They really had their minds planned out to ensure that these people get back to their homes. Because like I imagine for the state governor, how many parents came to his doorstep?
I know at the time he was very active. He was always going to and from, trying to make sure that all of this.
First thing first is human. He's a father. There's empathy for him. There's a lot of concern to how does it go. Let's look at also the community side of it. We've seen how rescue missions of these lads in Orire also ignited that there's still hope for Kwara victims. That was why the Kwara victims came out with 176 of them, and that also gave a genuine shift in the fact that Nigeria's security response is taking a new dimension, and it was worth celebrating. But while we're celebrating, the main question we're asking is, or we're looking forward to, is future issues should not be at a reactive point. It should be, what should we do to put an end to all of this? Because it started from way back, the Chibok girls. It's not today. So at what point can Nigerians sleep with their two eyes closed? At what point will Nigerians say, okay, we are in a nation where there's nothing like... there are countries where you can't even talk about armed robbery.
They have almost a zero rate of
crime.
And why is that? That's another aspect that we also fail to tackle, even though the government has said they are doing it, which is the welfare. Because we've said the fundamental already. The social contract of every government is security,
of course,
and welfare. If you can't guarantee any of these things, then you're creating an atmosphere of chaos and anarchy. If the government, even if they are trying their best, but if you cannot get the people the basics, if unemployment is high, if poverty rate is high, Nigeria has one of the highest rates of poverty. It has not one of the, outrightly has the highest rate of poverty in the world in terms of population. We're the country that has the highest number of poor people across the world. If that is the reality of Nigeria, if unemployment rate is high, if inflation rate is high, all of these things are breeding ground for insecurity. Because I'm not saying people, even in the countries that have the best GDP, they've got a level of criminality. But the question you ask yourself is, what is the rate? If you have a lot of people who are engaged positively, the young minds, because when you talk about criminality, the people who we've seen become participators of this criminality are young minds, very, very restive young minds. So that energy of youth, if you do not channel it to a positive light, then the bad eggs among us will certainly take that energy and use it for the bad things. So if the government is serious about tackling insecurity, beyond sending troops to the ground, beyond getting armories from across the world, beyond budgeting over 7 trillion yearly for the defense, you also have got to go back to the basics, which is providing welfare for the people, giving them schools. How many out-of-school children do we have in Nigeria? We have millions of them. It's one of the highest rates in the world. So if those children are not in school, trust me, there's no doubt about it that criminal elements will recruit them and they become foot soldiers of the bad eggs. So if we don't tackle all of these social vices in Nigeria, even if the government is trying its best, they can still do better. And unless we tackle that, then all we're doing, all we're saying in terms of fighting insecurity, for me, would end up being lip service, because the main sincerity is giving the people a life that is worth living. And if you do that, you see that all of the other things will fall in place eventually.
Okay, so I like the fact that you broke this down to the poverty line, to the issues around us, and then one want to ask what human rights standards should guide rescue operations.
Very important question, because we've seen a lot of problems. Nigeria, example, there are times that we go to procure weapons outside the country, and they say we can't sell this particular type of weapon to you. And the question is why? You do not protect human rights. Even if as a person is a prisoner, there's dignity of the prisoners also. So what is the level of our correctional facilities? How do they treat people? Do they treat, even if once someone's arrested, he's not automatically assumed guilty. He's, in the eyes of the law, he's presumed innocent. And then you go through the litigation process, and then he's either proven innocent or not. But in a country where you have a lot of extrajudicial killings, where people who are supposed to be arrested are shot on the spot without a fair trial, those are questions that have actually even put Nigeria in a very bad light. If you look at our ranking in terms of countries who protect human rights, Nigeria's ranking is not really nice. It's not a good one. And those are things that do not really help us. Even, like I said, if you want to get weapons to fight insecurity, if you do not have all of these records in check, they don't give it to you because they feel you're going to use it against your own citizens rather than against the people who are the real culprits of those criminalities in your country. So human rights protection is something that the country can do better at, even though we're not doing badly compared to how we used to be previously. But we still have
we're getting there.
Yes, we still have work to be done before we get to that stage where we know Nigeria has protected a lot of human rights for people.
Okay, maybe we should just put up Mukhtar to be an expert in terms of the security work. But fantastic ideas, Mukhtar, and then we'll see how that, because like you mentioned, we need to also look at the fact that institutional reforms are very key. They are needed to tackle kidnapping sustainability, because we're seeing it's been sustainable over time.
Yes.
Kind of, because if it wasn't sustained, we wouldn't have had it run through in the last few years. True. We've had a true successful government. And it's the concern, because I saw with the fact that guns that were seized were also bonds that don't have the license. And that is one part of way of dealing with these things, because you want to wonder, how do these kidnappers get the weapons that they use to threaten and frighten people? We've seen people also in fake uniforms, which also is a problem. And that's one of the reasons why intelligence gathering is also very important, because when you start with this community base of people, you know that they know themselves. And they can easily point out when they have a stranger in their midst. That started with the rural community as well, because it started, the intelligence gathering started with where they had to ask questions to one small businesswoman who was selling small, little basic needs. And she knew that,
petty trader.
Petty trader, she was getting lots of sales, and questions were asked, who's coming to buy?
Who are the people that are in this community? You raised a very important point, and those are 2 points basically from what you said. Proliferation of arms.
Yes.
Porosity of our borders.
Very true.
Those are very, very pertinent discussions, because we've seen that the proliferation of arms into the country is one of the things that have fueled the insecurity. Because before now, we didn't really have as much as we have currently.
Very true.
In terms of an arms race coming into the country. And that has fueled the insecurity, because once they have easy access to weaponry on the black market, not official market,
yes,
on the
black
market, you can just go with a few thousands and you're able to procure ammunition. And the next thing they think is, okay, let's go abduct this person. He has got money. He's going to be able to pay. That's one aspect. Secondly, we even saw the news earlier, if you remember, in Benue State, where they abducted 5 Pakistanis.
Yes, so trace and follow up with what they are doing. Yes.
So which means most likely those people came into the country through the back door, which is the porosity of our borders. So if we continue to have too many weapons that are unregulated, and we have our borders that anyone can come into Nigeria without license, without purpose, then these are issues again that would, because some of these people who are the kidnappers, it has been credibly established that they are not even Nigerians. That's one. Secondly, they don't even have the documents or papers to be in Nigeria. They don't have working papers. They don't have any resident permits. They just came in from the neighboring countries, and then they start to establish criminal syndicates in Nigeria, and they operate unabated, unchecked. So those are questions that
they need to be answered, because while we're celebrating the rescue mission, just like we're saying in the long run, is the fact that authorities need to balance aggressive security operations, because once they start to understand, because of course these people will not rest. They will study what strategy you're using. They want to cover up their tracks. They want to, because they have their agenda. They know what their target is, and is one of the things is to put the government in a very imbalanced situation, so that they keep having people casting stones to them and saying, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. Even though they are alleged words to saying they are self-inflicted, insecurity issues is self-made.
We've heard that. Of course, one thing about insecurity we've seen over time, it is multifaceted. It is hydra-headed. It's not just one-way traffic. There are so many. We've even heard of foreign sponsors being people responsible.
Part of it.
But we are responsible for our own destiny. We cannot continue to treat
we cannot be held down because we cannot deal with these issues.
Exactly.
So that's the essence why the government needs to help ensure that there's aggressive security operations with the protection of civilians. The people who don't have the get to way to survive. Because at some point was this call for, what's it called? People start having their own arms to defend themselves. But that was going to be a really big concern, because you could have your arms and accidentally something could go and
Nigerians, some of us have got we are loose cannons, to say it in a very mild way, and we could just aggressively. I'm not totally against self-defense. It's a fundamental right, and we've seen that across the board. But are you having regulations to ensure that the people who are given the license to bear these arms, are they of sound mind? Are they?
That's why you need to check them psychologically to say they are fit to hold arms.
Exactly, you just don't license arms to anyone and everyone. You have to have a structure that ensures that it is going to go into the right arms. That's a point, yes. Go into the right arms and help the people that need it the most. It's very important.
Very, very important and timely. But while we're looking at all of these things, how can we see how the government can also be put on accountability work and transparency to ensure that people the trust that is being built right now to the rescue mission is put well in terms of the area of civil society? Like we said, it's a multifaceted thing. It's not just let the government alone. The civil society, the citizens themselves. How can we find or have a meeting point so that advocacy can stand out, accountability can stand out, so initiatives
is very important, Anita, because if you look at our budget, the highest sector that takes is security. Well, how has that translated into results? How
the results?
So that's where accountability comes to question. Even though I know they'll tell you that security matters are classified and should not, they're not subject to scrutiny as other sectors. But we have to ask the right questions, because if you continually put money into a sector and it's not something that has been viable in terms of, when I say viability, I'm not saying we've not seen results, but the results, are they commensurate with the amount that has gotten into that sector? That's where accountability comes into question. And like you said, civil society organizations hold that role to the government to hold them accountable as to how they do the spending. And as citizens also, we can't stay there and blame the government every time saying the government has not done their part. Are we doing our part as citizens? We've seen people in Nigeria here being informants to the terrorists. We've seen brothers, not even people, we've seen brothers sell brothers to the captors. We've seen sons sell their fathers out to people for ransom. So we talked about the government. What about us as a people? Are we accountable to the will of God that we serve? So we can't just always blame the government at all times. We also, it's a double-edged sword, and the government and the people are at both edges. And until we're able to aggregate that interest, then we continue chasing circles and eating.
While we're chasing circles, if we don't want to get that right, we need to also find a way of, like I said, my really concern is the fact of trust. Because when trust is broken, it becomes a problem. People cannot really say, okay, we trust the system, we trust what it is. But while we're getting results, that's what we're advocating for all of this, is the fact that
trust cannot be built without results.
That's what I'm saying. This is one of the results. Yes. We've gotten from 2 good states. Remember that the story around Kwara was not just around Kwara alone, it was around Niger State and Kwara. And of course, we saw the fact that calls were made for it. And the government wanting to ensure that they have a good name or a good record, so the fact that it wasn't just one-sided operation, it was also part of ensuring that the country at large, everyone is getting the release of these victims, the operations, of course, because we saw this play out. Look at the security operatives had to go with a whole lot. Yes. They put out a lot of things, sacrifices to ensure that came out. There's a strategy. That's how they were able to put that out for themselves. But notwithstanding, Kwara also came out and had their own answers, because it was a long time coming, and there was need to ensure that Kwara residents also got the same excitement, just like the Oyo State or Orire community got there, because there was so much excitement from the community when they had their siblings, loved ones come back to their home base. It showed that they could trust the government, the state government first, and also trust the authority. And this is from Kwara as well. This was the side of Kwara as well. Kwara became a problem. That call was really very strong at that point in time, calling for the answers to come. And of course, when the governor received the rescued victims from captivity, he said he followed a coordinated security operation after the adoption from the communities in Kayama local government area earlier this year. And look at this is vulnerable people, mothers, children. And he said the victims were handed over to the state government by the Nigerian army, and it was a thing of joy. And while they were celebrating this, they also thanked the president and commended his combined security agencies for the courage put out, because if they had not put out their own mindset to ensure that there's return of this, it never had happened. And also that's a way of showing that security operatives are also doing their best. So this rescue came in days after the state government had announced that the adoptees from Woru and Nku communities also regained their own as well freedom. So this is also part of the ones that came in after, you know, that Woru had, because this is 163 residents who were also rescued alongside with it. So it shows that rescue missions is coming, and subsequently, as time goes on, hopefully Nigeria does not become a hub for kidnapping anymore. The business would start shrinking. And perpetrators will really brought, because of course we also had that the perpetrators were also arrested in some of them were caught, which is good, which gives us hope, because these are factors that makes the recent rescue mission very interesting, that you can say, okay, it's actually a rescue mission because perpetrators were also apprehended as well.
Apprehended, and the fact that I like the fact that the government has brought an initiative where we have speedy trials. These people would immediately go to the court and start to face the music. It's something that is given hope, because the reason is, over time we tend to see some of these people, they don't even go on trial, they are in remands. Over years, people forget them, and some of them actually even get to leave the system, the prison system, through the back door, and with the help of corrupt officials. But now that we have expedited trials, you know that once you've been apprehended, you're going to
facing the trial straight
up, and then you get the sentencing that you deserve. And I've seen that happen throughout the months that have passed, and I hope it's something that is sustained, because one thing is sustainability. We just don't do 1 or 2 rescue missions and then we lay back. We cannot afford to rest on our oars.
No, we cannot.
We need to sustain that tempo and even make it even stronger across the country, because there are still some people who are still in captivity. So all of those people who are in captivity, in spite of how long it has been, need to regain their freedom. And if that happens, that will obviously build the trust that we talked about, which has become eroded because of lack of security across the country.
While we're talking about security, we mentioned the issue around the psychological effects and how this is playing out for victims of all of this concern. And then there's a story I saw also, I want us to talk about on the issue around this also rescued victims, on the psychological impact it has. There's a story that came in. We saw that story around a nurse rescued from the Kwara kidnapping issues, delivered 10 babies in terrorist captivity.
10? That's a crazy number.
So let's give it a breakdown to this story. A nurse rescued after nearly 6 months in captivity has recounted the harrowing conditions she and her and other victims endured following the February 3rd terrorist attack on Woru and Nku communities in Kayama local government area of Kwara State. The victim, Amira Salihu, who is the daughter of the chief of Woru community, Umar Salihu, she helped delivered 10 pregnant women, not here herself. Yes. She helped because she's a nurse, and of course they needed her expertise to come out to play for them. So she helped deliver 10 pregnant women during captivity using her bare hands because she had no access to medical equipment or gloves. Salihu disclosed this while speaking with the media, and this was she spoke with Channels TV as well. It's on Politics Today, that was on Friday. She gave the account. Well, according to her, the captivities were subjected to severe hunger and deprivation, with the terrorists providing them with poorly prepared food and forcing them to sleep in the open, sometimes close to a river. Well, you can imagine that. Well, she said that the adopters occasionally provided cooker and a local food preparation, but later stopped doing so. She added that the captives were exposed to rain while sleeping in the open, with the terrorists preventing them from keeping fires burning. The nurse said she became involved in assisting pregnant women after the terrorists asked whether she was a nurse if there was a nurse among the captives. She said she initially denied being a nurse because of fear, but later assisted women who went into labor. So, Mukhtar, this is a thing of concern. With this kind of experience, good enough she had the expertise, good enough she was able to save lives. What if there was nobody like this on ground? You know, 10 babies who were supposed to come to life, you know, and be given that. But so we'll be asking, what brought me to Nigeria? That's on a lighter note, but this is actually a thing for concern. That it's good that we're having rescue missions, but it's better for us to start looking at the perspective of being proactive, just like we've mentioned in the last few minutes of our conversation, than being reactive.
Honestly, and this also borders on human dignity, because for people to, I'm sure those ladies, some of them were molested by these men, by these abductors. Their dignity as humans was tampered with, because she recounted the horrific experience of how they were maltreated. So as citizens, we have a right to dignity as human beings, not even as citizens.
Of course.
God created us as people, and He has given us those privileges. So for these people, they tend to take away your humanness, if you like, or your human dignity. And that's something that's really worrisome, especially for the women. Women, we know, are precious beings that should be protected, but we've seen these people over time violate the sanctity of human lives and human existence, and that's not a good one, Anita.
Well, while we're hoping that the rescue mission begins to give us hope and save us into the nightmares, because I'm imagining a child who is just being born, doesn't understand anything yet, but the parents are carrying the burden through pain, through trauma, and trying to survive. And also, have you seen where a mother is holding on to a child and saying,
she doesn't want to let go, but you're forced to let go in situations like this.
So we hope that those nightmares become a thing of the past with the rescue mission, but which shows us that hopefully a new hope is there for Nigeria in the kidnap crisis. Gradually, we hope to see good results. That's the word to see. And then, of course, while we're wrapping up our conversation on this, we look forward to seeing more advocacy, more intelligence-led operations, more collaborations across the different security operatives, and also more accountability to government to what they promised the people. And of course, we've seen them putting that, but we hope to see more come out.
We also need to see the people also become accountable. Like I said, we've seen people who are complicit, who help these terrorists.
They need to also align themselves with the people who are doing the right thing.
There was a woman who actually provided girls for these terrorists. She even provided her own daughter.
That means she has a dead conscience. So we need to start working on our mindset. Our psychology
is very important, because
could that be poverty making you think like that?
I don't think poverty might be a factor, but you should also check yourself up.
If you're human first.
If you're human, because how would you provide these things because you want money? The money that you're not taking to heaven, the money that you not even take to your brain, basically, money that would finish in this world, you sell your conscience for it. So as people, we should also ask ourselves, in as much as we are holding the government accountable, let's all as individuals hold ourselves accountable to the will of God, even if we are not doing that to the government, because there's a day of reckoning. All of us will face whatever it is we've done in this world. That's one thing we should never forget in dealing with our fellow humans.
Okay, while we're humans and trying to see how this pans out well, let's also wrap this conversation saying that the successful rescue of adopted Nigerians offers renewed hope to families, and across this families is also across the country as well. Yet the true measures of progress will be a future where such rescues become increasingly unnecessary, because kidnappings are prevented before they occur. That's the mindset we're trying to set right now, Mukhtar.
Of course, fighting Nigeria's kidnapping crisis, fighting it requires more than just courageous rescues. We've got to put structures in place, like you said, that prevent all of this. It's not about saying, let's sweep into action when it has happened, when you can actually have prevented it and save a lot of cost, a lot of human damage, a lot of lives being damaged. In fact, you could have saved yourself the stress by just preventing it in the first place. And we can do that. It's not rocket science or anything. We've seen other people do it. It's something that we can replicate here in Nigeria.
Okay, well, we look forward to replicating good governance and also accountability for the nation. We hope that this gets out really right, and the respect for human life is very, very important. That's our major call at this point. We want us to, as individuals, as a nation, as a state government, as a federal government, as executive, every part of human life, let's get our hands on deck and ensure that kidnapping becomes a thing of the past. And of course, we want to say a very big thank you for being a part of the Global Morning Weekend this Sunday. It's a weekend getting into the new week. And we hope you had a wonderful time with us on this conversation, and we hope that we get a new Nigeria when it comes to security matters. And of course, we've had an amazing time from the beginning of the program. It's been fantastic.
We brought them the newspaper review.
And of course, yes, this and texture. I brought it more and more. I hope you're going to try that.
You obviously know the answer already.
We need to try that. It was really beautiful here. We also had a discussion around developmental works and how well implementation would do if we get that on the way for us as a nation.
And of course, we brought you issues of security where we X-ray the recent gains we had in the security world in terms of rescue missions and how we hope to see that go forward and get better.
And of course, that brings us to the end of the program. Thank you so much for being with us. I am Aniti Patrick.
And I am Mukhtar Kasim.
Bye.
Bye for now.